Hello, Grammie here. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be reading an entire book called The Secret Window. There are no pictures in this book, and there are 15 chapters, so I'm going to be taking the readings chapter by chapter for you to enjoy. And I know you probably like to read books yourself, like my granddaughter Bailey. But this time, perhaps, maybe you'd like to just sit back, relax, close your eyes, and listen as I read the story of The Secret Window. Let me tell you a little bit about The Secret Window. Meg has a secret she doesn't dare tell anyone. She has weird dreams, dreams that come true. Meg is sure that if anyone knew about her dreams, they'd think she was crazy. All Meg wants to be is a normal kid like everyone else. It's bad enough that she has her secret window into the future, but when her father leaves the family and she loses her best friend, Meg feels more different than ever. With the help of her grandmother and a wonderful new friend, Meg begins to accept herself as she is, even with her strange dreams. Finally, a near tragedy makes Meg realize that sometimes being different can be a good thing. So, without further ado, shall we begin? Chapter 1, The Dream Book. Meg, for heaven's sake! The dream shattered under the impact of the angry voice, and Meg blinked awake. Her mother stood over her, filling the small bedroom. "What are you doing in bed? Are you sick? I asked you to peel potatoes and turn on the oven at 4:30. Is that such a big favor?" "I'm not sick." Meg sat up and rubbed her eyes. "What time is it? I just laid down for a minute. I didn't mean to fall asleep." "The dream. Mustn't forget the dream before I have a chance to write it in the notebook." "Obviously, it's 5:15 or I wouldn't be home," her mother snapped, "and I see no reason why a 12-year-old girl needs a nap after school. When I was your age, I was taking care of 5 little brothers and sisters while my mother worked. I certainly didn't need time to—" She stopped, her face going through one of the swift changes of expression that Meg knew well. "I realize you don't want to hear what I did when I was your age," she said in a softer voice. "Still, I can't see why you—" "I'll peel the potatoes now, Mother," Meg said, "right away, quick. Should I make instant pudding for dessert?" "That would be nice." Her mother followed her out of the bedroom, giving a quick little pat on the fanny. "I'm tired too," she said, "and hot. We all are." It was her way of apologizing. In the kitchen, Meg carried the potatoes to the table next to the window so she could look out while she worked. Days in traffic filled the street. She could see a whole block of Brookfield Avenue from their 4th-floor apartment. Meg watched the superette at the corner where her brother Bill worked after school. She wanted to see him the minute he came out. She knew she'd be able to tell by the way he walked if he had great news to tell them at last. "Anything interesting happened today?" Her mother's voice was cheerful. The annoyance of a few minutes earlier firmly smoothed away. Her "look, I'm in control again" voice, Bill called it. He said her sudden spurts of rage were little explosions designed to prevent the big one. "What big one?" Meg had asked him, but he just shook his head as if she were too young to know. "Nothing much," Meg said, her eyes on the street below. "I got a B+ on the final history test. And Gracie stayed home with cramps. Her period," Meg added, just in case her mother didn't understand. It was irritating that her friend could spend a day a month at home with no questions asked, while her own mother made her go to school when she felt every bit as bad. "And I'm going to be on the Jefferson Flyer staff next fall," Meg went on. That was actually very interesting news, but as usual, her mother didn't realize it and changed the subject. "I don't suppose Bill called," she said as she dipped the chops into egg and then into breadcrumbs. No, it was Bill's news, of course, that her mother really wanted to hear. She had probably been thinking all day at work about the science award she hoped he'd win, and the university scholarship that went with it. She'd probably hoped good news would be waiting when she walked in the front door, news that would make her forget the unexpected heat and how tired she was. "I'm pretty sure he's going to win, though," Meg said. "I really am." "Why, you're just a little Miss Optimist," said her mother. At the other end of the block, the door of the superette swung open, and Bill came out. He stood for a moment, then turned and started walking up the street toward the apartment building. Very slowly. A bad sign. If he had good news to tell, he'd be running. Well, no, Bill seldom ran. But he'd be walking faster and maybe looking up at the apartment windows to see if she was watching. Meg's mother was peering over her shoulder. "He didn't hear, Miss Optimist," she said. "Look how he's dragging." "Or else he did hear, and he lost," said her mother. Meg longed to tell her mother about the dream she'd had just a few minutes ago, but she didn't dare. Even if her mother read everything that was written in the notebook hidden away in the bottom bureau drawer, she'd say the whole business was silly and only fools believed in dreams. "I don't suppose you know where your father is?" Meg winced at the icy tone. "He's at the library," she said quickly. "He was here when I got home, but there were some things he had to look up." "I'll bet," her mother said. "Funny how he's always at the library when his family comes home." "That's not true," Meg protested, but she knew it was. Her father was a writer. He'd already had a book of poems published, and someday he was going to be famous. Oh, the trouble was, writing took lots of time, and lately her mother had become very impatient. And though Meg tried to hide it, she was impatient too. She loved and admired her father, and she wanted to be the daughter of a famous author, but sometimes she wished he'd stop writing for a while and get a regular job. For one thing, they needed more money than her mother was earning, and for another, "You'd think he'd at least want to be here when Bill comes home," her mother said. "You'd think he'd be wondering if there was any news." Yes, that was the second thing. They all needed to know he cared about them as much as he cared about writing. In the last year, it had been hard to tell. The chops were in the oven and the pudding was chilling in the refrigerator by the time Bill opened the door of the apartment. Meg met him and ducked as his hand reached to pull her single black braid. "You didn't hear about the contest, did you?" she whispered. "Did you?" Bill shook his head tiredly. "Nope, not a single telegram, cable, or newspaper headline." Meg gave a whew of relief. "We watched you from the window and you looked sort of sad. I think you're going to hear good news very soon, but Ma was sure I'd lost," he finished. "Don't tell me." He went out to the kitchen and Meg followed. "Sorry, no big news today," he said. "How was the day on the real estate front, Ma?" Meg's mother smiled at his teasing tone. It was the first time she'd smiled since she'd come home. "Well, no news is good news," she said, showing that she could be Mrs. Optimist when she wanted to be. "And my day on the real estate front was like any other day. Filing, typing, and looking for lost salesmen. I'd much rather stock shelves at the superette and carry bags of groceries for nice old ladies." Bill helped himself to a stalk of celery. "You wouldn't if you tried it," he said. "One of those nice old ladies swore at me this afternoon because I didn't move fast enough." "That's terrible." Their mother dropped lettuce into the greens basket and turned the handle fiercely. "Did you run into Mr. the principal, what's his name, today?" "Corcoran, Ma, Mr. Corcoran. And believe me, if he had anything important to tell me, he wouldn't mention it casually in the hall or the cafeteria." "He'd call you into his office," Meg said, "and shake your hand." Bill shrugged. Probably, and he might call Dad and Ma to extend his congratulations for having such a terrific kid. Their mother laughed. Meg, standing on one foot and then the other, felt left out. She doubted that her mother's face would ever light up for her the way it did when Bill walked into a room. Meg had to learn to accept the difference, the way she accepted having her father's straight hair and long feet. Bill and their mother looked alike, light blue eyes, curly brown hair, and they had fun together. No use asking for reasons. When Bill left the kitchen, another celery stalk in his hand, Meg followed him down the hall to his bedroom. Maybe their mother had been fooled by his teasing, but not Meg. She knew he was unhappy, and she knew, the way she knew many other things about him, that he had just about given up hope that he'd win the scholarship. About the contest, she spoke in a whisper. He had thrown himself on his bed with his back to the door. What about it? I have this funny feeling, Meg began cautiously. I really think you're going to win the scholarship. I mean, I'm practically sure of it. Bill rolled over and raised an eyebrow. You're sure, he repeated. Where did you get your information, smart kid? I just know. I think maybe tomorrow is the day you'll find out. Mr. Corcoran will call you into his office and hand you a big tan envelope with your name on it in blue letters. Meg stopped, confused, as Bill stared at her. I mean, I just mean that I have this feeling it will happen. Meg waited for questions. She should never have described the envelope, but Bill just yawned and fell back on the pillows. Well, I hope you're right, old girl, he said, because if you're not, you're going to have me around for a long time. No prize, no college, and that's a fact. I know. Meg slipped out of the room and closed the door behind her. Bill wanted the scholarship so much. He was smart and ambitious, and he had to go to college. She understood all that. She even understood his wanting to get away from home, and she wanted him to be happy, but she hated to think what it would be like when he was gone. They'll be just me, she thought, and Mama being crabby, and Dad waiting to be famous. And the dreams. Meg went into her bedroom and took the notebook from the bottom bureau drawer. There was a ballpoint pen clipped to the cover. She opened the book to a blank page and began to write. June 8th, 1982. Sunshiny hallway, lockers on both sides. I look through an open door and see a man sitting behind a desk. He's talking to Bill, gives him a big tan envelope and leans across the desk to shake hands. I yell, "What is it?" Bill turns around and holds up the envelope, his name in blue, William Korshak. He's smiling. I reach for the envelope, and Mama wakes me up. Meg started to close the book, then opened it and added one more line. Mr. Corcoran has a mustache. Well, that's chapter 1, the dream book. So, the next time you see me, I'll be reading chapter 2. And chapter 2 is called, what is chapter 2 called? Chapter 2 is called The Big Explosion. I wonder what that could be. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed chapter 1 of The Secret Window. And until we see each other again, Grammie says, ta-ta for now, Bailey.